This is great news. The head of al-Shifa hospital, who had been in an Israeli prison for many months, was released without charges.
The Israeli settlers are attacking Palestinian homes, Palestinian farmers, Palestinian land, Palestinian vehicles, Palestinian authorities in a daily basis. The violence circle from the Israeli settlers increased. Since October 7th, they killed at least 10 Palestinian civilians, and the Israeli settlers are not accountable for their violence. Me personally, in the last month, I was attacked 5 times by Israeli settlers physically, and my property and my cameras were attacked by the Israeli settlers.
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to the Struggle Video News. This is great news. The head of al-Shifa hospital, who had been in an Israeli prison for many months, was released without charges. However, his account of what he experienced was pretty terrifying. Dr. Mohammed Abu Samiya was held for 7 months after he obeyed Israeli demands last December that he evacuate Shifa Hospital. He said his fingers were broken and that abuse and torture were typical for the medical personnel that Israel had imprisoned. He said that prisoners' food was so bad and so meager that prisoners lost on an average 50 pounds of weight. Abu Samiya's release triggered an uproar across many parts of Israeli media, most of which are viciously right-wing. And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office called it a grave mistake. A deranged radio and TV host named Roy Idan called Abu Samiya Dr. Mengele, after the Nazi doctor in Auschwitz. Government ministers and opposition leaders expressed outrage and insisted Abu Samiya played a role in Hamas' alleged use of the hospital. Although, as the Associated Press gently put it, Israeli security services rarely unilaterally free prisoners if they have suspicion of militant links. Yeah, rarely as in never. The Shifa as cover for terrorist-based allegation was a complete fraud. And this terrible news. You remember the little 6-year-old girl, Hind al-Rajab, who was murdered in Gaza City along with family members and with 2 Red Crescent workers whom the Israelis had allowed to go out and save her. This week, journalist Jeremy Scahill tweets that Hind's father was killed this week by Israeli soldiers. Now to Hebron on the West Bank for an interview. It's July 3rd. I'll be speaking to Issa Amro, a very determined Palestinian activist. He trained as an engineer. He founded the Youth Against Settlements in Hebron on the West Bank. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
With the genocidal attacks against Palestinians in Gaza, there's much less attention to what's happening in the West Bank. You're active in Hebron, a city in the southern part of the West Bank. What's the news there?
What is happening in Hebron is happening all over West Bank, from Jenin to Hebron. The Israeli settlers are attacking Palestinian homes, Palestinian farmers, Palestinian land, Palestinian vehicles, Palestinian authorities in a daily basis. The violence circle from the Israeli settlers increased. Since October 7th, they killed at least 10 Palestinian civilians, and the Israeli settlers are not accountable for their violence. Me personally, in the last month, I was attacked 5 times by Israeli settlers physically, and my property and my cameras were attacked by the Israeli settlers. And all the attacks happened to me in front of the Israelis, and they did nothing to stop the Israeli settlers. So the Israeli settler violence in the West Bank is happening in front of the Israeli soldiers, the Israeli police, without any accountability. This is in one hand. The other hand, the Israeli government now is increasing the number of the Israeli settlements bank. Only last year, more than 20 new settlement units was announced by the new Israeli government. It's 3 or 4 more than the normal settlement expansion rate. On the other hand, the West Bank is fragmented. What it means fragmented? The checkpoints are closed. There is no continuity between the villages and the cities, and the cities and the other city. For example, to go to Hebron, to Ramallah, it takes you hours because there is no direct road, or you go to shortcuts and you go within villages and within around roads, and you go field roads because all the roads are closed. We don't have enough water. Israeli government reduced the amount of water which is giving to the Palestinians to at least 40% cut from the normal water rate. In spite the normal water rate is not, because we, the Palestinians, get 10 times less than the Israeli water. We are not allowed to dig for water in water aquifers in the West Bank, and the Israeli government steals our water from the Bank, and they sell it to us, and even they sell us much less than what we need. The same with the electricity. Israeli soldiers are raiding Palestinian villages, Palestinian cities, Palestinian camps. Every day they kill Palestinians, and many Palestinian civilians were killed without anything against the Israeli soldiers or the Israeli settlers in the West Bank by the Israeli settlers. Israel is, at the checkpoint, dehumanizing Palestinians, torturing Palestinians, beating them up, soldiers taking photos and videos for themselves, dehumanizing the Palestinians, making their life harder and harder. And they arrest Palestinians in the West Bank, and the Palestinian prisoners are starving in jails. They don't give them enough water. They don't give them enough food, and they are losing weight. Each prisoner came out from Israeli jail lost at least between 20 kilogram of weight to 100 to 40 gram of weight. That's a lot. That's a lot. They don't get Palestinian prisoners. Around 3,500 Palestinians are in administrative detention in the Israeli military jails, which means they are in jail without trial, without being charged of anything. It's a secret file. They don't know what they did. Their lawyers, they don't know what they did. Among them are activists, journalists, leaders in the society, in the community. So our life became miserable more and more after October 7th. It was miserable, more miserable than it was before. And there is no media coverage of what is happening in the bank, and there is no attention to what's going on. And the Israeli leaders, the Israeli lawmakers, Israeli ministers are saying that they are working to annex West Bank to Israel and to change the rule of law in the West Bank, which means they are working to destroy and dismantle the Palestinian Authority. This is what is happening in the West Bank. The situation is very hard, and the situation is impossible to describe.
Yeah, I saw, I believe, on your Twitter feed the picture of Mr. Tamimi from Nabi Saleh. So he was taken at the end of October and just released a few weeks ago, and it was hard to believe it was the same person.
Not only Mr. Tamimi, many other Palestinians lost a lot of weight
Yeah.
for starvation. They don't give them food, and they are proud of that. They are not giving Palestinians enough calories. They say that this is whatever, and now they are even, calling to execute the Palestinian prisoners. The Israeli National Security Minister, his name is Itamar Ben-Gvir, is proud of what he's doing to the Palestinian prisoners. This National Security Minister, he was one of the Kach
Right.
movement, which was announced by the State Department in the 90s as a terrorist organization. And
Yeah,
he was
we
not
know
allowed even
about
to be
him
in the
here.
Israeli military. No, Itamar Ben-Gvir was not allowed to be in the Israeli military because of his
Right.
violent attitude. But now he's the Israeli national minister. So he is really KK of Israel.
Yeah, it's just horrible. On your Twitter feed, there's a June 26 video of Israeli soldiers acting with violence against cars, against 3 cars. Could you tell us what that was about?
The Israeli soldiers are wild. You know what it means, wild? And they are acting as militia, not acting according to state of law. They damage cars. They paint the Star of David, Palestinian private house doors, gates, shops gates. Whenever they go to raid in villages, they shoot Palestinians. They beat up Palestinians without any kind of accountability. And what you see in these videos are throwing the cars, pushing the cars to the valley.
Off a cliff,
Palestinian
they
cars.
just pushed 3 cars.
Yes, that's it. No accountability to the soldiers.
Incredible. Earlier in June, you talked about the delays for a Palestinian Red Crescent ambulance as it was evacuating a woman. Could you explain the details on that?
Yes, the Israeli military in Hebron is making the life of Palestinians harder and harder. So they don't evict us physically from our houses, but they make it impossible for us to stay and remain. It's a kind of a transfer. It's a kind of ethnic cleansing and genocide to the Palestinians who are living in the West Bank, and especially in Hebron, the situation is harder and harder. So you live in a house and you don't feel safe in your house. There is no security because of settler violence and army brutality in this one hand. On the other hand, no services, no social life, no services. Among the things which we don't get is the ambulance. So medical care. So a Palestinian woman in Tel Rumeida neighborhood in Hebron, in the city center of Hebron, she broke her hip. She's around 80 years old woman, and she needed an ambulance, and the Israeli made the ambulance for 3 hours. So an old woman was in pain for 3 hours because the Israeli military didn't allow the ambulance to come in to her house to carry her. And zone, it's not a war zone, it's not a violent zone, it's a Palestinian neighborhood in the middle of Hebron under the Israeli military control. They didn't give her any medical treatment, and they didn't allow the Palestinian ambulance to come in on time. 3 hours of pain for a Palestinian old woman because of the Israeli racism and the Israeli supremacy and the Israeli violence toward the Palestinians. Why? Because the Israeli leaders said that we are being human animals. So they are treating us as human animals. This is the treatment of human animals. Even animals, they are treated better than how they treat us.
Now, this may be a foolish question. Years ago, there was protests that you took part in, you led with the Youth Against Settlements group. Is it possible to have any kind of protests now?
Palestinian non-violence resistance is not allowed, and it's illegal under the Israeli military law. And me, I was arrested, ill-treated, indicted, convicted in the military court for my non-violence activism. So it's not allowed in Palestine by the Israeli military. And we were doing it because we believe in non-violence, and non-violence for us is the best and only tool and the only to make a change. And this is what are we doing since very long time as and me personally, I'm doing it since more than 20 years, and I think I'm doing well. Now, after October 7th, it's impossible to do kind of gathering, because they used to arrest us. Now they may shoot us and kill us for peacefully protesting against the Israeli occupation and against the Israeli brutality.
I want to go back to October 7th, the date of the Hamas-led attack from Gaza. What happened to you that day?
First, I condemn all types of violence, and I don't justify violence. This is our culture as Palestinians, but we, the Palestinians, live under the occupation and the military oppression, and the main feed of violence is the Israeli military and the Israeli occupation and the Israeli settlers and the Israeli violation to the international law. What happened to me was that I was kidnapped by Israeli settlers and by Israeli soldiers. Midday to midnight, they put me in a military base in Tel Rumeda next to my house for 12 hours. I was beaten, I was kicked, I was tortured, I was tied. My hands were tied to the back to the point that it was so painful for 12 hours. My hand was swallowed to 3-4 times more than its normal rate. I was gagged. They gagged my mouth. I was blindfolded and beaten and almost killed in 2 times. They didn't bring me any from pain. They didn't bring me any medical treatment, and I was assaulted by one of the soldiers.
I mean, did they tell you why they were doing this? Did they accuse you
They
of
did it.
anything?
They did it because they are bad soldiers and bad settlers, and because the occupation gives them a space to do whatever they want. I'm not a suspect of doing anything violent. I'm non-violence activist. They know me well. They know my politics. They were not even that I'm part of Hamas, because human rights defender. I don't belong to any party, any political. I'm just I belong to the human rights defenders' principles and morals, and that's me. And it's not only I was not the only person who was tortured and beaten and ill-treated by the Israeli soldiers before October 7th, and even during October 7th and after October 7th. Hundreds and thousands of Palestinians were killed in West Bank, tortured, beaten without anything, by the way. I was not the only one. Maybe I was the most famous one who speaks English and who is well known to diplomats and to international media, and they know that. And in spite of that, 12 hours of, and until now, I have nightmares about that, and I'm traumatized, and it's not easy to go over what happened to me on October 7th.
Now, this occurs in Hebron, and for our viewers who are not familiar, it's a big Palestinian city with a group of very, very extreme settlers living inside it, protected by the Israeli army. It's also the site of the Ibrahimi Mosque, where the terrible massacre took place in 1994. You were a young fellow then, is that right? In 1994?
Yes, I know well what happened during the Ibrahim Mosque massacre, 25th of February 1994. Goldstein, who is the hero of Itamar Ben-Gvir, the Israeli National Security, and they were supporting the same party, the Kach party, the Kahanist party.
Yeah.
Broke into the Ibrahimi Mosque, killed 29 Palestinians, and hundreds were injured. Baruch Goldstein was killed by one of the worshippers to defend other Muslim worshippers. It was in Ramadan. And Baruch Goldstein was an American soldier from the Israeli military. He was a doctor. He killed 20 Palestinians, and he's a hero now for settlers. And he has a tomb in Kiryat Arba, and they celebrate his anniversary. They celebrate the anniversary of the Ibrahim Mosque as a victory for the Israeli settlers. And we see that the followers and the supporters and the ideology of Baruch Goldstein is mainstream in Israel now, and his followers and supporters are the main pillar of the Israeli government these days, and they are now ruling to the sea.
Do you go to the mosque now? Are you allowed in there?
To go to the mosque, you have to pass at least 3 checkpoints. Now, after October 7th, the majority of the checkpoints are closed. with delay even, and with dehumanization, with cursing at the checkpoints. Yes, I go, but it's not easy. Around the mosque, we have around six checkpoints, and to pass from one side to another, you have to pass three moody who may detain you time and who may make your life horrible. So it's not easy for Palestinian worshippers to go to the mosque.
This is my last question. You had a very powerful statement of thanks, I think it was last November, for the people who are trying to support Palestinians. And we put that on our show. How do you feel about the months ahead, and what can we do to help from the USA?
I want to thank you for what you are protecting ground. You are inspiring us to continue our non-violence struggle. We can do non-violence without your support and without your creative actions. I always tell my friends all over the world, show your solidarity, be solid with your solidarity, be united, be engaged, and make it part of your daily routine. Each action you choose to do, it's valuable and it's very important. So be creative, be in touch with us on the ground, and really work to make the occupation costly. And for sure, we will win. We are on the right side and we are almost there, but we need to work a little bit harder.
Thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you. Thank you. You are welcome.
Okay, I'm going to stop the recording. Now remembering another Zionist crime. Exactly 100 years ago, on July 1st, Jacob Israel Dahan, an ultra-Orthodox writer and journalist, was murdered in Jerusalem by agents of a Zionist militia. He was exiting a synagogue after prayer. Dahan had been a Zionist in Holland, but after coming to British-ruled Palestine and meeting Arabs, he became an anti-Zionist. He was seen as dangerous to the cause of Jewish supremacy, and so the Zionists had him killed. Friends of Justice for Palestinians held this protest in Ossining, New York. Ossining is a small town on the Hudson River north of Manhattan. Its town board passed a resolution adopting the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. That may seem a trivial matter, but the definition is bogus. It's all bound up with Israel, deeming meaningful criticism of Israel to be anti-Semitic, and it will be used in schools and in the public to squash criticism. And there was this counter-protest. This is a petition worth signing, telling the Ossining politicians to realize that neither anti-racism nor anti-Zionism are anti-Semitism. Big news. The million-strong Presbyterian Church voted to divest itself from its Israel bonds investment and to engage in criticism of Christian Zionism. You might think these are scenes from the West Bank, but they're actually from Turkey, where there have been racist riots against Syrian refugees. Syrian refugee Omar al-Shagre comments,
I am disgusted and angry, but not surprised by the rise of racism against refugees in Turkey. What's happening in Turkey is attacks on Syrians in their homes. Beatings, stabbings, and the burning of cars and properties simply because the owners are Syrians. When politicians use hate speeches against refugees in order to empower their election campaigns, refugees end up being attacked and they face disgusting discrimination. So stop blaming your political failures on refugees, stop blaming your financial crisis on refugees, stop blaming your instability on refugees, and instead start taking some responsibility. Racism and violence won't bring you stability or economic development. It brings you destruction. And on the other hand, I am aware of countless Turkish people who offered help and are trying to protect innocent refugees. To you, I want to say thank you. Thank you for standing against racism, for standing against violence.
Travis Harden has died. The Lakota Ho-Chunk singer, dancer, presenter, and artist was born in South Dakota. Here he spoke to me in Old Lyme, Connecticut at a Tree of Life Fund conference. Could I ask you first your nation? Okay, you're here at this conference about Palestine. Your shirt says Palestine. When did you first get aware of this or interested?
Well, I met David Good like 20 years ago or so, and the Old Lyme Congregational Church has been coming to our reservation for 29 years. This next summer will be the 30th year that they have come to help us, and they come and buy us art from us, our artists around the Cheyenne River Reservation, which is a really hard. It's hard to survive as an artist, but there's a lot of us, so they really help us out. And so I've been coming out here to Old Lyme and teaching children. And one time I came and brought my sons to teach the school front store in New York, which is was about 37 black children from Harlem. And I've come out for different art things and teaching, singing to the children in Old Lyme and sharing our culture with our sister church from Greengrass. And so that's how I've been coming out. And so finally, David, he knows what my singing presence can do. And so he thought that this would be a good opportunity for me to go see what's going on and sing and present at these conferences and share the struggle of their people and our people. It was a century ago when we started our struggle, and they try to do away with us by using the buffalo and the water and different tactics, just like they are with the Palestinians.
And his artwork was quite excellent. Travis Harden, Presente. That's our program for today. See us next week at this time. I'm Stanley Heller for the Struggle Video News.